It is 101. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. Browns general manager Andrew Berry, head coach Kevin Stefanski, and new quarterback Deshaun Watson just met with the media about an hour ago after Watson signed a 4-year, $230 million contract with the Browns, discussing the allegations of sexual assault against Deshaun Watson by 22 women. General manager Andrew Berry said they were advised by their lawyers against reaching out to the women because it may be considered interfering with an investigation. Berry did say that the franchise hired private investigators to look into the matter. Deshaun Watson continued to maintain his innocence.
These allegations is very, very serious. But like I've mentioned before, I've never assaulted any woman. I never disrespected any woman. I was raised by a single-parent mom who has 2 aunties who's her sister, and that's who raised me.
Deshaun Watson also expressed his intent to continue to clear his name via the court process, with the civil suits still remaining against him. NCAA tournament action continues tonight in the Sweet 16. First game at 6:09. St. Peter's and Purdue meet as St. Peter's looks to be the first 15 seed to ever reach the Elite Eight. Providence taking on Kansas at 6:30. It's UNC and UCLA at 8:40, and then Iowa State and Miami rounding out tonight's action. You can hear it all, including this weekend's Elite Eight games, right here on The Zone, courtesy of Westwood One. Former Titans linebacker Jayan Brown has been signed by the Las Vegas Raiders as an unrestricted free agent. The former 5th-round pick spent the last 5 years playing for the Titans, led the team in tackles in 2019. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once, and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. We're getting story time here, and Lucas is like, your microphones are on.
Hot mic.
You can talk to everybody else but each other.
Yeah, you just was going to bamboozle us, right? You're supposed to protect us.
Oh, I'm not. I don't put you in any bad spots.
No. He can see how animated we were talking to each other.
I
got you covered.
yeah, man, all this watching stuff, it's making me scared and nervous here, man. So I don't know what's going on. Oh, it's rainy there, too, in Cleveland, man.
Yeah, story today, certainly what's going on in Cleveland. I know about you paying attention to that. Also, we're right in the middle of the NCAA second, well, not weekend yet, but Thursday, Friday. You know how we're moving here on this deal.
Ooh, some upsets. Like it.
Let me ask you guys this. Who would your comp, because I'll tell you who mine is. Do you have a comp for Gonzaga? If somebody was like, who could be the next Gonzaga, or who could be like that? Who would you say? Because I've had one for years. I've said this before on the air.
Like in a different sport.
No. It can be basketball. Basketball. To basically put a gauge on what they have done.
Why could you just say Belmont?
That's it. It's Belmont.
Same colors, too.
This would be like if Belmont was a top seed in the entire tournament. And I even looked. There's almost no difference in the enrollment.
Yeah, it's about the same size.
It's a small private school. 76-37 is what comes up for Gonzaga. 82-04 comes up for Belmont. And Belmont's gotten a lot bigger than the first time I lived here. It was much smaller. So it's grown to be that amount. And the funny thing about Gonzaga is there's such a great story. I mean, if somebody just said, flash forward 20 years from now, and Belmont would have been a number 1 seed 5 times. They would have been ranked number 1. They would have played for a championship, and you'd be like, oh, my gosh. Well, Gonzaga did that. And they're in Spokane, Washington, which is not nearly centrally located like Nashville. They're doing their business way over there in Washington, off the beaten path. But I thought about them because it's interesting. They're kind of 2 different stories. It's remarkable that they've done what they've done, because it would be just like Belmont doing it if they just said, okay, we're going to be one of the best basketball schools in the country, and they did it. But the interesting thing is this is now 5 number 1 seeds that they've had and no titles.
Well, what I can say, my thought process is, that story's over with, what they've done.
Yep.
Now you're on the platform of you're an elite program. So there's no more talking when you go 5 times. So that story, this is a good story to me, 2 or 3 years ago, because they kept doing it back to back. Now the story is, how can you win one? And I'm putting it in the matter of a coach, the university, and they just, come up short. I mean, hey, that's okay too. It's hard to win in the tournament. And what you find out, though, when you watch teams, though, is man, you get to see athletically where they stack up. And that means the other team or your team wins because you're the better athlete, because the better team usually wins, or if you get hot. But when I'm just talking about athleticism, the guy with the bandana is the reason why he didn't come out last year, because I thought, oh, man, he should come out.
Drew Timmy.
Yeah, Timmy. Yeah, right. Great footwork in the post play. Well, if he doesn't develop a three-point shot in the NBA, who is he going to be? Think of a player so that you think he can replicate as a player in the NBA. And I can't think of one. He needs to push out and be his ring. You got back to the basket, got multiple skills. You'll probably be a 10-10 guy, 10 points, 10 rebound guy. But when it came to athleticism, when he started putting the ball up there on the rack, them dudes was high flying, man. They was coming to get it. Yep. It was tough sledding for him. So it's a different level of athleticism that he's going to be competing against. So I think their guards are guards, so you can go to anywhere. And hey, they've done a great job recruiting. Now they're on the elite level of recruiting, at least from that forefront. And then their big guy, he's a young guy, but he's going to get bigger and stronger. But, he may be their next, big, draft pick down the road. So, yeah, it was good to see Arkansas. Man, they look good. I like what I saw. Them and Houston, I really did. And then it's hard not to cheer for Duke because this is the last year for Coach K. And then how they stuck it out. Mentally, they just got tougher. And you know what? I loved hearing from him. Most coaches wouldn't have done it because they always want to do it their way. He said, hey, I told him to switch the zone. We called a timeout, came to the sideline. They said, hey, coach, we need to go back to man. He said, let's do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Because the players are the ones out there playing. We're going to go down. All right, you on the floor. Let's do it your way. Hey, you got your legs fresh now. That's what I'm thinking. All right, let's roll. So, yeah, man, it was good to watch, man. It was exciting. So, I'm kind of quietly cheering for Coach K. I don't know if I've ever been like a Duke hater, but I've always got tired of them always being there.
Right.
But I would say I want them to go out, on top maybe. I don't know. Houston is scary, too. Arkansas, man, I'm interested in the matchups tonight, man. What you got? Kansas, Providence. Providence is underrated, and Purdue, St. Peter. How can you not, cheer for them?
Then you got 11-10 matchup tonight.
Yeah.
You got Miami and Iowa State.
Watch this. My bracket is destroyed because I had Gonzaga and Tennessee in the championship, so I've been done. Then Arizona goes. I'm like, whoa. Man, Lucas, do you have any? I don't really have anybody left. Really, I have Purdue, but I don't have them going past. And they weren't going against St. Peter and the Peters, But UCLA, UNC, I had UCLA winning this one, and I had Kansas. Kansas is my Lone Ranger's the only one really left for me.
This is the worst my bracket has ever been.
Yeah,
ever.
Me too. I'm not even close in any man. I don't even. If Kansas gets beat, I'm wiped out. No, nothing.
Can I make a confession?
Oh, no.
I didn't do a bracket.
Oh, okay.
I haven't done one in years.
I thought you were going to say, I got 16.
No, I haven't done one in years. And I don't know why. I just don't do it. I don't ever do one.
Wait, is it because you're just about as porous as we were this year?
Oh, no, I'd be terrible at it. Oh. I went several years where I did bracket challenges with my friend. I did it with my friends. Most years I could pick 2, 3 members of the Final Four. I picked the winner of the tournament 6 or 7 years in a row, but I missed all the early.
Oh, my.
But I missed enough early games that I never won. I never had enough points to win it. And I thought, I'd screw this. Some 8 seed beats a 1 seed or whatever. And I gave up on it.
We kind of have a family deal. We always do it. And my aunts always destroy me. It's like, what is going on here?
Tell people where.
And
they
then my
live,
wife
though.
will beat me, and then that really perturbs me.
Okay,
she's just picking just because of the jersey color.
Tell people where your aunts live, though. They live in a state that knows basketball.
Oh well, yeah, they grew up knowing basketball. Naturally, I've
Indiana.
already confessed that they know football as well or better because they used to come off the field with the tights. Like, hey man, why was you doing that on that one play? We're sitting down there eating dinner after the game. I'm trying to debrief and relax. Like, you gonna ask me about a play? Like, really? It wasn't like it was a touchdown or something I gave up. It was more like, hey, on this one play. Yeah, my Aunt Joy, man. Ooh, she was detail-oriented. I don't know why.
She bring out like a notebook. Like,
yeah, like
hey,
my mom was be like, hey, good job, Good. She hardly talked about it. But my one Aunt Joy, man, she would be like, Man, that's why I got my info today. Because I had, not even, I said, I don't know too much about Providence. I know back in the day they were good. She said, oh, they better watch out for Providence. They got some length to them. They got some athleticism to it. That's the first thing she said out the box yesterday. I'm driving home. First thing she says. I was like, oh, my. She said, they better watch out for that team. That team is dangerous.
I will say this, stupid me. I had Va Tech as my sleeper coming out of the ACC. I picked the wrong one. It was North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina's finally coming into their own. But, man, this tournament, man, basketball is just a weird game where if you get hot and got to shoot, man, you can have some favor, but it could go wipe away the next game. Nothing.
That's
Then I'd be exhausted, boy. I would be getting in the cold tub for sure.
Yeah.
Ooh-wee. What if they provide them cold tubs?
I bet they provide him something.
We should make Lucas do a cold tub. I don't think Lucas has ever done a cold tub. He's
just a
doesn't-
soccer player. Come on,
That don't
now.
mean they wouldn't. He was in high school.
keeping his legs
We did
fresh.
cold tubs in high school.
Yeah.
Oh, man, y'all, your soccer players, y'all supposed to run all day. You're 18. What are you talking? 16?
Hey,
What do you mean?
Those leg muscles, man.
Oh,
Hey,
you
I
got it a
hated
real
the cold tub.
See, you
hated
look like the type who would be scared of the cold tub. I'm
Hated
doing it one time and that's it.
Yep.
You did it one time.
No, I did a couple times, but I never once. I could never relax in the cold tub.
You would tense up, huh?
Yeah, couldn't do it.
Do you guys, who is the best? Because Kay is going to be gone whenever this run ends. And as Blaine pointed out, I think people are rooting for Duke that never root for Duke.
Yeah.
People that
Yeah,
hate
I'm one
them
of 'em, yeah.
have become fascinated with watching this. Like you said, them coming over and saying, let's switch what we're doing defensively and we can win the game. And him going, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he's going out and giving them control like this run, as long as you can keep it going. I thought that was fascinating.
That was pretty cool.
So when he goes, who's the number one? Who's the coach? Because it's Coach K and then everybody else. Who's the guy then? Is it Jay Wright? He's
Yeah.
won two in short order.
I mean, as far
He's
as
got
the-
some former players on the staff right there. They may let one of those guys do it.
Tom Izzo's still around, but you
Yeah.
know, they just kind of make the tournament now and give teams some trouble, but they don't really contend for championships.
I mean,
Yeah,
what
that's
is
a good question.
Does Cal have one? Right.
Just the one.
Bill Self, does he have one at Kansas?
yeah,
one?
just one, right?
I think that's right. And I know, poor Buck is watching Kelvin Sampson do what he's doing.
Boeheim's still kicking it at Syracuse.
Boeheim's kid punched another kid
Yeah.
in a conference tournament, and they were mad about that he got disciplined for a game. Come on, Boeheim. What are we doing? He was mad. They didn't think that was fair. They didn't call anything during the game, but then he had to miss a game. He punched a guy. There's 15 cameras at the game. They all captured it.
He in a game?
Punched a guy in the chest. Not in the face, but he punched him in the chest. They did the thing where two bigs are running down the court and they're getting settled in the paint. They bang into each other. So the kid banged him pretty good. So he just punched him right in the rib cage. Nobody saw nothing. So then later, after review, he gets a spin for a game. Boeheim's like, that should have been handled during the game. It's not right. Come on, Boeheim.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh, Buddy
Lee.
Buddy Boeheim. Buddy Lee Boeheim. All right, we talked some basketball in the first segment here. We're going to talk some more. We'll get a rundown on last night's games, tonight's games. David Cobb with CBS Sports set to join us next. You want to know what's going on in the tournament? He's got all the answers. That's coming up next on Blaine and Mickey on Friday.
Buddy Lee.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Blaine and Mickey brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is Friday. Oh, man, David Lee Roth sounds good. At one point, and I can't find this article anymore, somebody went through and categorized every noise that David Lee Roth made in every recorded Van Halen song. And he categorized them as a Roth call, which is like, He categorized
How was that again?
I couldn't do that again, or I won't be able to finish the show. He categorized all the things that David Lee Roth did, and then he counted them all and made an encyclopedia of David Lee Roth sounds as featured in Van Halen songs. If I could find it, it's the most well-constructed work, maybe the last long, like, book-type thing that I've actually read in my life. It was fantastic. If David Cobb wrote a book about college basketball, I'd read it, though. He joins us now, CBS Sports. David, are you a big Van Halen fan? Can you tell us any David Lee Roth stories right off the cuff here?
The extent of my classic rock knowledge was gained playing Guitar Hero in middle school. So no, not really.
Well, you probably played some Van Halen songs. That's good enough. We'll count that. Dare I say it, has Coach K actually become, I don't know, like a sympathetic figure down the stretch here? Are people who even hate Coach K and Duke just trudging onto the train to see how long this thing can last before it ends?
Surely not, right? Surely the nation, surely the nation at large doesn't want a full in-your-face helping of Coach K's farewell tour over the next 10 days. But it looks like that's what we're headed towards. Now they got to get past Arkansas. That Arkansas team is going to make them have to do a repeat of what they did in that second half against Texas Tech last night, because that Arkansas defense is almost as good as Texas Tech's. But, man, we are hey, look, I'm right in the middle of it here. I've been updating what we call the Coach K farewell tracker all season. That bad boy is up to about – hey, you said you would read a book if I wrote it?
Yeah.
I'll send you the link. It is basically a book at this point because it goes all the way back to their opening game at Madison Square Garden. And so I got to get an update in there about last night's game. But, man, it's been all season long for those who have been really paying attention to the sport. But, man, it's just going to hit a new level over these next few days, especially if they get past Arkansas and go to the Final Four.
And Blaine brought this up earlier. You know, we were talking a little hoops off the top of the show that basically the team came over and said, we got to switch our defense if we're going to win the game. He said, okay, go ahead. I mean, he's letting them kind of chart their own course down the stretch.
Well, that's really – honestly, that's impressive because my doubts about Duke in this NCAA tournament were about their youth and about the fact that they've got 3 freshmen in their starting lineup at a time in college basketball where most successful teams are getting older and older and older with COVID year, with the transferring and guys coming in with big-time experience from other schools. Duke is an outlier. They are by far the youngest team in this Sweet 16 and one of the youngest teams in the country by Ken Palm's experience metric. So the fact that a team that young with no players that have substantive NCAA tournament experience in a Duke uniform is become a player-led huddle and is able to rebound from a tough start against that Texas Tech defense. Really impressive stuff from the guys on that team. It can be about K if you want it to be about K, but you got to give Jeremy Roach and Paulo Banchero and the other dudes on that roster some credit.
On with David Cobb at David W. Cobb. Don't forget the W if you're looking for him on Twitter. He is covering college basketball for CBS Sports.
You'll get confused with the former Titans running back, David Cobb. I will forever be well down the Google search list in Tennessee because there was at one point, at least in a training camp, the former Minnesota Gophers.
Oh, no, he lasted a little while. We remember David Cobb. Trust me. Yeah. Every time we book you, his name comes up. But notice we're booking you, not him, to talk college basketball. So that tell you everything you need to know, David.
Well, David W. Cobb, man. I know maybe you didn't do a bracket, but, man, if you did, how bad would your bracket be busted? Because mine is done. I might as well just throw it in the trash right now. I'm about to shoot a hoop in the trash. Bang.
Hey, I did one, and it is trash. I threw mine in the trash on Friday. Heck, I probably could have thrown mine in the trash last Tuesday during the first 4 when Rutgers lost to Notre Dame. right? Because Rutgers has been one of those teams I believed in and thought I saw them beating Alabama going to the second round. So I was toast before the first round really even started. And, I'm the so-called expert. And that's the beauty of this tournament, though, is because you can watch college basketball all year, have legitimate insights, pick individual matchups reasonably well, but then the NCAA tournament makes you look like a fool because your first grader who likes teams based off their nicknames and off their colors are going to pick St. Peter's, whereas no right-minded adult's going to pick St. Peter's over Kentucky. Your first grader might, and it's really played out that way this year. And it's been a continuation of the way it was last year, because last year was similarly crazy. It's just that we ended up with a relatively predictable finish. This year, there's going to be nothing predictable about whoever ends up being in the national title game.
No doubt about it. Went with David W. Cobb. And I guess I want to ask you this because you're covering them day to day, and I could be wrong on this, but does it show that NCAA basketball now is the parity is starting to be, a little bit different, and the small guys are kind of rising up and having a shot at any moment in time to beat one of, the blue bloods, or is it just this tournament is just so happened that it's happening this year?
Well, I think we should revisit that in about 10 days, because there's still a chance now that we could end up with a pretty top-heavy Final Four in terms of brands. Because we got North Carolina and UCLA playing tonight. Neither one of those teams had a fantastic regular season by their standards. They had seasons that were good by the standards of any other program. But two programs that you might look at in terms of a seed line and say, oh, they're an underdog. But if you look at the name across the front of their jersey, the casual fan is going to associate them with being a premier brand in the sport. So there's still a chance that we could end up with a Villanova, Kansas, Duke, and UCLA or North Carolina in the Final Four. And so that would suggest that parity is not as prevalent as perhaps it has seemed over the last 10 days. But I'm looking hard at Providence tonight as one of these teams that could really crash that party and really mess things up. Because if Providence wins against Kansas tonight, you're going to have from the Midwest either Providence, Iowa State, or Miami in the Final Four. And if any of those three teams reach the Final Four, in some ways that does flip the sport on its head, because those three teams are not teams that anyone would have picked to reach the Final Four at the beginning of the season.
Man, so with that being said, David, St. Peter versus Purdue, do they have a shot? I haven't seen not one game yet, even when they did all the upsets. But, man, are they going to be able to beat Purdue?
I mean, at this point, you got to say they have a chance. I mean, it would almost just be disrespectful to say that they don't. They're going to need a heroic offensive effort, though. Okay. Purdue's going to score a lot. That's what Purdue does. They get to the 80s on almost anyone, almost everyone. And St. Peter's is a quality defensive team, but not such that they'll be able to hold Purdue out of, at best, the high 70s. I mean, I foresee Purdue getting to 80 or above, which is going to put the pressure on St. Peter's to shoot 50% or better from the floor and get hot from three like it did against Kentucky. So it's done those things already in this NCAA tournament. Can they do it for a third straight game against another high-quality opponent? It seems highly unlikely, but, of course, it was highly unlikely that they would ever be here in the first place. So I'll give them a shot. In fact, I picked them to cover. I think it's at 12.5, but I'm picking Purdue straight up. I just think in the end, the Peacocks are going to struggle to keep up with the offensive juggernaut of Purdue.
Man, that coach of St. Peter, he may get another job based off of the performance with better talent, but you got to put in recruiting and everything else. But I'm trying to figure out which coach has done the best job thus far.
At this point, I think you got to look in that Midwest region, and I think there's two candidates that emerge when you look at the Midwest. One is Ed Cooley at Providence, a Providence team that most people before the season probably would have looked at and said, yeah, they could make the NCAA tournament, not a guarantee, probably a middle-of-the-road Big East team. They just went out and won the Big East regular season title, which is something they were not expected to do in the least. And so if he's able to get Providence past Kansas tonight, I think he becomes the front runner for National Coach of the Year. Now that Tommy Lloyd has lost with Arizona in the Sweet 16, I think Lloyd's candidacy for the National Coach of the Year stuff might kind of fade a little bit. And then the other one is Iowa State's TJ Otzelberger, who is in his first year up there, took over a team that went 2-22 last season, did not win a single game in the Big 12, and he's got his team in the Sweet 16. I mean, that's just wild. That does not happen in college basketball. So I think it's between those two on my ballot, probably Ed Cooley at Providence or TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State.
Well, with David W. Cobb, who covers college basketball for CBS Sports.
So, David, what's the bigger story for Gonzaga right now? Is it just the continued success that they have every year, despite being this tiny school, way out west? Or is the narrative switched to they're a basketball powerhouse, but they can't win the championship?
I guess it's both, right? At this point, though, I think the criticism is fair on Gonzaga because you can only be a number one seed so long before you need to deliver. Otherwise, the falling short of expectations narrative starts to have some merit to it. And so what I'm curious about moving forward with Gonzaga is with the advent of name, image, and likeness, will Gonzaga continue to be able to attract these top-flight freshmen like they have the past two seasons? This year it was Chet Holmgren. Last year it was Jalen Suggs. Suggs was a lottery pick. Holmgren's going to be a lottery pick here in a few months as well. But Gonzaga, being what it is, a very small private school without the massive alumni base, will they be able to gather the NIL support and infrastructure needed to lure those five-star talents now moving forward into this new era of college sports? Regardless, Mark Few is still going to have that team as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seed every year in this thing. But my colleague Matt Norlander raised a good point in a column he wrote for our site last night, which is that their best window for a title may be closing. And, it's disappointing to see Gonzaga come up short again.
When Kay retires, who's the man in college coaching? And now you could go somebody like Boeheim or Izzo. We were discussing this earlier, who've been around a long time. But who is the best coach in college basketball when Kay steps down?
It's an interesting conversation because there's a void to be filled there in his absence. And so I think Scott Drew at Baylor is one that comes to mind. I mean, Mark Few is certainly in that conversation. Gonzaga is a recognizable enough brand now to where, look, Mark Few could have had any job at this point that he wanted other than that Gonzaga job if he were trying to get out and go somewhere else. He's clearly defined that he's most likely a lifer there. And so Scott Drew and Mark Few are two.
I put Jay Wright in there.
Jay Wright, absolutely. That's a good one as well. One that has kind of faded because his team is not in the NCAA tournament, that I'm curious to see if he can step up and fill that void in the ACC, in particular, Tony Bennett at Virginia, who has a national title under his belt, very recently. But the interesting thing is that we still have this FBI stuff and the looming IARP cases hanging over the sport as well. So you can't really put a guy like Bill Self in that conversation, knowing that there could very well be stiff penalties, headed towards his program in the near future.
Well, with that being said there, David, who do you think is going to be, and I thought that's what Mickey was referring to, who is you think going to be the coach of Duke next year?
Well, they've already named John Shire as the head coach in waiting. And so that's their plan. And, in fact, he's already kind of taken on more duties. There were a couple of games this season that Coach K was out due to illness. And so we kind of got a preview of what it's going to look like with Shire on the bench. Very, very young. He'll become the youngest coach in the ACC by about a decade. He'll be about 10 years younger than Josh Pastner at Georgia Tech. And Pastner has been the youngest coach in the ACC by a wide margin as well. So it's going to be different, no doubt, seeing someone else on that sideline. The early returns via recruiting, though, are pretty strong. Duke has assembled a pretty strong incoming recruiting class with those prospects who know when they signed, they knew it was going to be Shire, not Coach K, who was going to be the coach. So we'll see how it pans out. But no doubt, when you look at the fact that Coach K is on his way out, Roy Williams is retired now. Jim Boeheim getting near the end of his career. Leonard Hamilton into his mid-70s. There's an entire vanguard, an entire generation of college basketball coaches who are nearing the ends of their careers. And so it comes out a transformational moment in the sport as well, with all the NIL and different things that are happening now. So these are shifting waters and changing times within the sport.
Talking to David Cobb at David W. Cobb on Twitter, CBS Sports, college basketball analyst.
Well, David, man, a lot of people are complaining, myself included a little bit here, on how long the process takes on some of these reviews. I mean, do you have any idea what they could do to kind of shorten that up a little bit, or any suggestions on what the NCAA should do about reviewing plays?
Yeah, it's not good. I was watching the end of the Tennessee women's game against Belmont, second round, a great game at Thompson Bowling. I was watching on TV the other night. And from the point where there were about 52 seconds left, it was a really close game. From the point that there were 52 seconds left, between that point and the actual final buzzer sounding, nearly 30 minutes of real time elapsed. And I mean, give me a break. That is awful. That is so difficult to watch. And I think it really turns off the casual college basketball fans who are just tuning in this time of year really for the first time, when you've got situations like that where the final 4 minutes of the game oftentimes take half an hour. And so there's something that needs to be done. The one that gets me is like when they spend 5 or 6 minutes trying to figure out, did the basketball graze the arm hairs of a certain player on its way out of bounds? I'm like, dude, if you knock the ball out of bounds, I don't care if it touched the other guy's arm hair. Like, just if somebody knocked it out, give it to the other team, And so some of these, they just need to use common sense and get it done. But I'm with you guys. I think there is an issue there, not only with the late game reviews, but just officiating in general has unfortunately come to the forefront as a big issue during this NCAA tournament. And it's kind of taken away from what has otherwise been a pretty solid on-court product.
Well, now that Arkansas has won in Houston, man, what do you think of those two teams and how far you think they can go? Can they cut the nets, or you think that's a little too much?
At this point, I think it's anybody's game. Given the fact that three of the number one seeds have been eliminated, and a fourth could be in trouble tonight against Providence. At this point, it's anybody's game, and so that includes, in my mind, North Carolina. I think it probably includes Miami as a 10 seed. I've got my doubts about St. Peter's and Iowa State as legitimate national title contenders, not in any way a dig at those programs. I think at this point they've exceeded even their own expectations. But, yeah, absolutely. I look at Arkansas and Houston and the way they play defense and the lack of offensive firepower on some of these other teams now. And I see a path for them to win the national championship. And obviously Purdue and North Carolina, they can score with the best of them. I mean, they're as good of an offensive team as Gonzaga or Arizona. But Gonzaga and Arizona were pretty good defensive teams as well. Purdue and North Carolina are not good defensive teams. And so they can score, but I don't know if they'll be able to defend well enough if they end up in games with the Houstons and the Arkansas of the world, here moving forward in this thing. So the defense is here to stay, and that's clear. We saw that last night because Gonzaga and Arizona were the two best offensive teams in the sport all season long, and they kind of got out-toughed. And it was an illustration of the fact that the defense is playing a key role in this NCAA tournament.
All right, David, on the way out, we won't even ask you Final Four, who you got in the championship game. As of now, you can completely throw your bracket out. Fresh bracket starting now. Who you got in the championship game and who wins?
Yeah, I guess I'll go Houston and UCLA. So I was riding the Arizona train all year. I just have not been able to trust Houston at all. I mean, it's not going to be talked about nearly as much as the Coach K story, but the Houston story is wild. I mean, they lost their two leading scorers, their top guards, to season-ending injuries back before the new year. And the fact that they've managed to reach another Elite Eight under those circumstances, insane. So tip of the cap to Houston now after they got past Arizona. They can get past anyone. So I'll go Houston, UCLA in the title, and you're going to have to give me a few days to figure out who I think might actually win it.
Fair enough. We'll check back in with you soon, and we'll let you pick it then. David, always great catching up with you at David W. Cobb, CBS Sports covering college basketball. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, David W.
Yes, sir. David W. Cobb, not to be mixed up with that former Titans running back. All right, when we come back, do have an answer. We put this question out on the Blaine and Mickey Twitter when Coach K retires. Who carries the title of best coach in college basketball? I'll put best in parentheses because I know some of you may have somebody other than Coach K now. Well, I'll just go into the assumption it's Coach K. Phone lines open 615-737-1045. It's Blaine and Mickey. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Interesting asking David Cobb the question with Coach K leaving, then who is that guy now? Who is that?
Yeah, the assistant used to play. Used to play for Duke. The guy he named.
Oh, yeah, John Shire.
Shire, yeah. He could shoot the lights out. Remember him? Lucas, you remember him?
I do not remember John Shire.
He hasn't been that long ago, but it was interesting because David Cobb said he would still be the youngest coach in the ACC by a decade.
Yeah, he's only in his 30s.
Yeah.
Early, mid-30s.
Which tells you the experience level. They ain't messing around in that. I mean, Shire is the chosen apprentice. But everybody else, you're going to get an ACC, you're going to have some skins. I mean, you're going to have to have been around a long time to coach in that league. I mean, for him to be in his 30s, because think about the football coaches that are getting hired. There are coveted football coaches who are in their 30s that any league would hire. Old guys don't get hired anymore. Young guys do. That's what made the Sam Pittman hire at Arkansas such a cool thing. By all accounts, nobody on paper is going to hire Sam Pittman. He's killing it for them.
What a fit that is.
Well, that was a great fit. Yeah,
oh, my gosh, just perfect. Yeah. And so just the fact that he's in his 30s is like, oh, yeah, there's nobody within a decade of John Shire. And he's getting the job not because they ran some exhaustive search. They just sat in a room and said, who's the best guy to carry it forward? And they just basically are handing the ball off to him. I'm not saying he's not qualified, but I'm just saying that's a hard league. That's a difficult league to get into. So who's the guy now? So David Cobb, I said, okay, who's the guy now that when we talk about the best coach in college basketball, because it has to be Krzyzewski. Who carries that mantle? He said, Mark Few was the first guy that he said. And he brought up Tony Bennett.
Scott Drew.
Scott Drew was the other. Yep. Scott Drew and Tony Bennett.
Izzo's kind of falling off here, huh? Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know.
There for the taking.
Rick Barnes.
Rick Barnes quietly got him extension this week. Got another year added on.
2026-27.
You're a UT guy, so let me ask you this: where are you on Barnes?
Look, what are you going to fire the guy that just won the SEC tournament championship?
Nope.
And is still recruiting at a high level? Like it is what it is, right? I mean, you can have the opinion that he's a great coach and has established a great culture and program that players want to go to and play for and is recruiting well, and that he's clearly had a tournament ceiling his whole career. You can acknowledge that, but still say that he's good for the program and the extension's probably well deserved. Tennessee's not a basketball program that you fire the guy that has had all the success that he's had because he didn't make the second weekend this year. And
why do you go immediately to fire? He won the SEC tournament.
Right.
I mean, so
and I'm not saying
are people saying that or something?
I'm not saying I've seen that. Now, that's been a somewhat of a discourse before this season. I think last season those cries got a little bit louder when Tennessee won 18 games, lost in the first round, felt like it never really utilized the talent. But you're right. That's probably a strong thing to jump to here because I have not seen that about Rick Barnes. But it's okay to be upset about the ceiling that's been placed on his tournament success at Tennessee and still understand that, he's got one of the best cultures in the SEC right now as far as basketball goes.
He's just such an interesting case because by all accounts, he's like the best, absolute best human. Dick Vitale was tweeting out like prayers that he would send him while Dick Vitale battled cancer. Just the fact that he's that kind of a thoughtful guy, and there are numerous stories about his kindness and things that he's done and helped people out with and just been just abnormally kind to people. But there is that odd thing of what's he got? One Final Four?
Yeah, Final Four with Texas.
One Final Four with Texas. Mm-hmm. And when he got the job at Tennessee, people were like, I mean, he's a great guy, he's a great coach, but the knock is he's not going to win in the tournament. And when you take the Admiral Schofield, when you take that, Grant Williams, you take that team that I think a lot of people thought, holy cow, they're going to make the Final Four. Well, it didn't happen. So then this year you got a mix of like super senior Fulke, you got NBA players, you got everything in between, role players, you play great defense, and it happens again. But he might be the ultimate question in college basketball of, well, who are you going to get better?
Yeah. I think a lot of Tennessee fans have circled. Not to say they want to out Rick Barnes for this guy, but Steve Forbes over at Wake Forest who was the ACC Coach of the Year this year and did a great job with ETSU before
I was going to say he was the ETSU guy.
And he was an assistant with Bruce Pearl for a while at Tennessee. So I think
still go back to Pearl. It's still connected.
It always does, right?
I
I like to think this year finally wiped that away, right? I think that because you don't have the Elite Eight that Pearl was able to achieve, the only Elite Eight in school history, but at this point, you did something that Pearl never did, which was win an SEC tournament championship. Mm-hmm. You've won a regular season championship, which Pearl was able to accomplish. But I do think that it has faded this year more than ever. The go back to Pearl days, because at this point, Barnes has achieved almost everything Pearl did except for that Elite Eight.
What was their record head-to-head this year? 1-1?
Oh, Tennessee. They played one game that Tennessee won at home.
Yeah, they won at home.
I think I asked you this in the hallway the other day. This is before Blaine got here, and I saw Lucas, and I said, what was the thing I was trying to come up with? If you were a Vol fan, would you trade the SEC tournament title for – we didn't go Final Four because anybody would trade for that. Was it Sweet 16?
I'm just guessing. I wasn't there.
It was Sweet 16 or Elite Eight because I thought I need to say something to Blaine, come up with a question for this because he loves to put questions out.
Yeah. I said if Tennessee, if before the SEC tournament, I was out there saying – if you gave me no SEC tournament championship and Elite Eight appearance or SEC tournament championship and Sweet 16 appearance, I would take the latter. Yeah. I would give up that extra win in the tournament for a trophy, for a championship, which are hard to come by.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why people aren't as mad this year as they were last year or the Grand Admiral years because they won the tournament.
Yeah, they got over that hump.
SEC.
They got over a hump they haven't gotten over since 1979.
Yeah, all you guys seeing how many years it was till you'd be born, and I thought, I'm well aware of what happened in 1979. I was just about to start driving a tractor at that point in my life.
That was not because I'm young, right? That was not because I'm only 20. There's a lot of people that were born after 1979 that have never seen Tennessee win an SEC championship.
And not a lot of media members in Nashville as that became a big point of discussion. Many of them saying they weren't born when it happened. We do have an answer on Twitter weighing in. Josh says to Blaine and Mickey Twitter, Bill Self would be my easy choice, but Jay Wright would be my choice, talking about the quote-unquote best college basketball coach now that Coach K is gone. You can hit us up anytime on Twitter. At Blaine and Mickey, you can hit us up anytime if you want on the Zone TV chat as well. Right. Anytime on the phone. Mark Spate Real Estate Hotline, 615-737-1045. All right, Buck Reising is coming up in about 25 minutes. Also, we will call our shot before the end of the show as we do every Friday. So don't stick around. You need to stick around for hour number 2. It's coming up next on Blaine and Mickey.
It is 2:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. Quarterback Deshaun Watson was officially introduced as a Cleveland Brown in a press conference earlier today alongside general manager Andrew Berry and Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski. Berry said that the Browns were advised by lawyers against reaching out to the 22 women when doing their due diligence on Watson because it may be considered interfering with an investigation. He also said that the franchise did hire private investigators to look into the matter. Meanwhile, Watson maintained his innocence.
I know these allegations is very, very serious, but like I've mentioned before, I've never assaulted any woman. I never disrespected any woman. I was raised by a single-parent mom who has two aunties who's her sister, and that's who raised me.
Watson signed a $230 million contract with the Cleveland Browns and expressed his intent to continue to clear his name via the court process as he still faces several civil lawsuits. NCAA tournament action continues tonight. The Sweet 16 picks up at 6:09. St. Peter's and Purdue meet as St. Peter's looks to be the first 15 seed to ever reach the Elite Eight. It's Providence taking on Kansas at 6:30. UNC and UCLA after that. Iowa State and Miami will round out the Sweet 16 action. You can hear it all, including this weekend's Elite Eight games right here on The Zone, courtesy of Westwood One. Former Titans linebacker Jayan Brown is a Las Vegas Raider, signed as an unrestricted free agent. Brown spent the last 5 years here in Nashville. And a big college baseball weekend as Vandy, after beating South Carolina 10-0 yesterday, plays again against the Gamecocks at 6 p.m. And the Vols at Ole Miss in a top 3 matchup. Game 1 is today, a 6:30 first pitch. Lane Kiffin throwing out the first pitch down in Oxford. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. Buck Reising coming up in just a few minutes. We will talk Titans with Uncle Buck Reising. We'll also call our shot in the final segment of the 2 o'clock hour. So if you got a shot that you want to call, courtesy of Chattanooga Whiskey. Prometheus has already called his. He says, I have Houston and UCLA in the Final Four with Houston winning.
Ooh, I like that one.
And we had David Cobb on, not the former Titans running back, but the CBS. David W. Cobb. We had him on earlier, CBS Sports. He said those were his 2 championship teams. Yeah. Those were the teams that he had in the championship game. If you look now, I get email updates from a certain betting service. Houston is the betting favorite right now to win the tournament.
Oh, my.
Houston is the betting favorite to win the NCAA tournament. Well, they have 4 seed.
I like what I saw.
They're a 5 seed.
Are they 5?
Yeah, which I don't. How is it not Duke?
Oh, yeah, 5. Yeah.
I'm trying to look at the bracket, make sure if I call my shot, it's not 2 people on the same side of the bracket since my bracket is bungled. Man, can Arkansas and Houston make it? I'm trying to look here. I don't think so. Arkansas is right here. UCLA's at the bottom. And where's Houston on the chart? Oh, they're over on the right. Oh, yeah. So, I'm going to go. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go Arkansas versus Houston at this point.
That goes back to the old Southwest Conference days,
yes,
where it was Arkansas and a bunch of schools from Texas in the same conference. That was a real thing, kids, that existed if you've never seen that.
They got to get through Kansas, UCLA, UNC, they play. So it's still, as he said. I didn't like hearing them say that, like, Purdue doesn't play defense. I'm like, typically those teams don't win it, but you run and gun, it depends on who they end up playing. I'm assuming they get past St. Peter's.
I would love to see St. Peter's keep it going. I mean, my thing is this. Like, my team
You're not cheering for Duke? You should say your face.
I don't hate Duke. I don't hate them. And we had this discussion earlier. I don't hate them. I know a lot of people do. I'm like you. Most years I'm just like anybody but them.
Yeah.
Duke wasn't it Duke and Butler when Butler missed a shot at the end of the game?
Yeah, I was cheering for Butler.
I was cheering for Butler in that game. So I don't have any beef with Duke.
Were you a Duke, North Carolina guy? I mean, when you were watching those 2 teams play? Because that was kind of the.
You know what's funny? I know
I was North Carolina.
It's like Yankees and the Red Sox. Everybody picks a side, and even if they're not interested, those teams play and they have a side. to me, it all kind of depended on who was playing for each team at any given time. Because there were times where I liked kind of the guys on Duke better and times where and I know people are like, what are you talking about? You have to pick a side. I just appreciate that for what it is. Yeah. I just appreciate the intensity of that freaking basketball game or games, obviously the series. So I don't know. They're just different players that I've liked. Look, Lucas seems like he would have a very definitive side in this.
Oh, I'm North Carolina.
You're always North Carolina.
I mean, if they play, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter who's actually on the team. I'm just kind of more.
Was there something that did that, like when you were a kid and it was Michael Jordan and he was on North Carolina and you're like, I'm always Tar Heel. How did you arrive at that?
I think it was more just the exciting way that they played at that time. Now it's kind of changed and Duke is kind of a little looser and recruit guys a little bit differently. But I think that's where it all started. It was just the style of play in Dean Smith. I mean, it was just the whole deal. North Carolina, yeah, it was just had a rock. And I think it started when Michael Jordan hit the shot against Georgetown. Because I think I like Georgetown a lot. And I said, man, this North Carolina team they're always going to be here to stay. So.
Well, they've been here to stay. It's news if they're not great.
Lucas says he doesn't care about either one of them.
No, he has definitive thoughts on this. I'm
wanted
quite
the
sure.
upset last night. I did want the upset last night. I always want the upset when it comes down to it. But at this point, with Duke being one win from the Final Four, I do think it does feel right for the run to end in the Final Four with Coach K, whether that's in the semifinal or in the national championship. At this point, although it would be, I do like Eric Musselman. I think it would be cool to see Arkansas.
Ooh, me too. I really like him.
Yeah, finish that run. But
he looked like a Tasmanian devil out there after they win. It's like it's coming from the soul of his entire body.
Yeah, he looks like he's a little crazy.
Like, man,
let me just say
intense.
this. I'm not an Arkansas fan. I did grow up in Arkansas. So when I talk about Arkansas, I'm talking as a neutral observer.
You were Arkansas State. You hated Arkansas.
However, they've only recently started playing in anything, so I never really got to root against Arkansas when my team played. But here's the thing: Arkansas has unlimited resources. They have the Walmart money. They have Tyson Chicken money. They've got all the money in the world.
Jerry Jones money.
Jerry Jones. They're a sleeping giant. So this idea, they just had to find the right people. Bobby Petrino was in an affair with a blind girl and a motorcycle wreck that got him run out of town. They were rolling pretty good at that time.
They were winning games.
And basketball in the state of Arkansas, it's not Indiana, it's not Kentucky, but there's a bunch of teeny tiny towns that don't even have high school football. And there were even more of them until all the schools got consolidated. There's a whole bunch of people in Arkansas who are all basketball all the time. They just got the right guy with Musselman. And like you said, Blaine, he's cuckoo.
Yeah.
Like takes his shirt off, his arms in a sling.
Yeah, because he had surgery or something right on the shoulder, man. I mean, I like him, man.
That dude, they hired the right two people. Because, again, it's not they have
Pittman, yeah.
They have all the resources in the world. It's like being in Tennessee and saying, well, I'm a Vols fan. The Vols get most of the state's resources and most of the state's interests. It's no different in Arkansas. I think it's even tilted more towards the Razorbacks in Arkansas than maybe it is for Tennessee. It's 98% instead of 97%.
But it's at 99%.
Because Memphis may get a little bit in that part of the state. They may get a little bit of the Tennessee fervor and kind of pull it their way. But in Arkansas, I mean, even in Jonesboro, and I'll admit this, I worked at Arkansas State. It's all Razorback everywhere. I mean, in the city of Jonesboro, maybe Arkansas State owns that turf, but they're still dying in the wool Razorback fans. So they got a chance, as long as Musselman stays there, they got a chance to be good for a while. I mean,
they got a couple NBA players out there now, man. They got some dudes. I think this matchup, they saying, who does Arkansas play?
Duke,
right. They played Duke. They said they played in 1994.
Yeah,
in the Final Four.
Yes. Yeah, so that's history there. So I like this, man. This is going to be a good one.
Well, this is such an interesting mix, and I think you asked this about David Cobb. Has the landscape of college basketball changed? Because, like, St. Peter's is in this, and, Providence, who's had great moments, but they're not an every year blue blood program. But, I mean, you had Arizona, they lost. Purdue's been up and down. Kansas, UNC, UCLA, those are all brand names. Here's Iowa State. Miami's the number 10 seed with Larinaga. I mean, these COVID super senior teams and just being able to keep guys around, it feels like it's even the playing field some. If you've got guys who've been in your system for 5 years, they can play with, 2 or 3 great freshmen on some other team.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be fun to watch. I'm always cheering kind of for the underdogs, though, but we shall see.
I'm 100% for the underdogs.
Yeah.
Lucas, who are you for when Duke plays North Carolina in their 2 matchups?
I can't lie. I took a lot of pleasure out of seeing North Carolina beat Duke on Coach K night, just out of the pure comedy of it all, right? Like, even as a Duke fan,
I knew it.
Like, that was an objectively hilarious thing to happen. Just a complete, the way that went with all the stops that were pulled out in Coach K's final game at Cameron Indoor. I was rooting for that to happen, but no, I don't have a preference when it boils down to the 2 of them. I've never felt too strongly one way or another about Duke.
Yankees, Red Sox, you have, since that's the other thing that just gets shoved in everybody's face.
I'll ride with you on that, Mick. I'll ride with you.
I haven't said.
Right. He's assuming the Yankees, I guess.
I got no allegiances. I can't like.
So you're Yankees?
No, but I'm not Red Sox either. I mean, I have no.
Well, why you say you ride with?
I can't. I'll just ride with what Mickey's got going on.
I thought you were saying maybe like you were like me on Duke and North Carolina, where I just kind of look at the teams every year, and if there's a player I like, then I'll root for them that particular year. I know it's not supposed to work that way, but
yeah. I don't have an ounce of baseball allegiance, whether it's love or hate for any team.
Nobody?
None.
You have no baseball team.
I have no connection deep enough to let me. When
Will
I was a
Bowling
kid,
is in the studio with you. He looks so disgusted right now.
They can't make decisions, Will. This is crazy right here. Pick a side.
Will would have the most definitive answers. Duke and North Carolina, Will, who is your team? When they play each other.
Duke and North Carolina, who's your team?
Out of those 2, absolutely North Carolina.
Okay, absolutely North Carolina. All right, Yankees and Red Sox, when they play. You have to root for one or the other.
Absolutely the Red Sox.
Okay.
If you compare any team to the Yankees for me, the Yankees are my least favorite team in pro sports.
You're a Braves fan. How do you not hate the Mets? I feel like you hate the wrong New York
He
team.
said they're not. He said the Mets aren't any good.
Yeah, he hates the Mets too.
Hey, Mets. It's not like they're not spending some money though. They may mess around and give you a little something to think about this year.
I tried to root for the Braves as a kid. So let me pick a baseball team. It's the Braves. It's the Southeast. I'm born in Tennessee, grew up in Alabama. But like I couldn't stick. I'm not from Atlanta. I have no connection to Atlanta whatsoever. Like that part has to be there for me. There has to be some sort of connection, whether it's me or family or something.
You just made me think of a question. Quietly, do you still root for Alabama?
No.
Okay. I just want you to know, behind closed doors, I don't know, Lucas, man. Sometimes.
Blaine, let me tell you, growing up as a Tennessee kid in Birmingham, where all 4 years of my high school, either Alabama or Auburn won the national championship, except my senior year when Auburn lost in the national championship.
What year
game.
was that?
It would have been 2010 through 13. The 2010 through 2013 seasons.
Yeah, 2013 was Gus's first year back at Auburn.
Where they lost Florida State. Every year, either Bama or Auburn was playing for or winning a national championship. In Tennessee, 6-6, 5-7, 5-7, 5-7. My life was miserable in that sense. So no, I don't know. I've always felt very strongly
I think I'm
going
to find a photo of you at one of the Alabama Auburn games with their, T-shirt on.
You can go for it. You can scour. Whatever internet or Facebook you want to scour.
Were you wearing your orange T-shirt to school and getting like your lunch money taken?
I was definitely getting a lot of crap. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I don't know why. Like as an 8 or 9 year old, I was like, yeah, that's where I'm from. I'm a Tennessee guy.
Okay. I don't know. You know how some people shift.
I would have been a lot happier if I had chosen one of those two. I'm sure. Life would have been a lot easier.
Hey, man.
So you're a little miserable.
There are a bunch of people who just gave up and chose Alabama.
They did.
I want to root for a winner.
I saw more Alabama stuff on cars here than I'd ever seen over the last 3 or 4 years.
You remember?
I was like, man, where did all these people that were Alabama fans, where'd they come from?
We did some remotes at Kroger.
That's 10 years, really.
Back in the 3HL days with like Derrick Henry or different Alabama Titans, especially with Derrick Henry. And there'd be 8,000 people in there with Alabama stuff on. I'd be like, oh, what part of Alabama you guys from? They'd be like, Smyrna.
Smyrna, Tennessee.
All right, when we come back, Buck Reising will join us. Let's get the latest on all Tennessee Titans off-season stuff from one Uncle Buck Reising. That's coming up next on Blaine and Mickey.
Hoosier all day.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Buck Reising can get some satisfaction, unlike Mick Jagger, who couldn't get any. Stone's about to start their 60th year on tour. 60th year. Buck, 60th. I cannot wait. Well, I'll be dead then, but I'll be watching down from heaven when you start your 60th year in broadcasting of the Buck Reising Show. That took a dark turn.
I got to go. Bye.
60 years of Buck Reising Show. Let's do it, Buck. You want to pledge to that right now?
Well, there will have to be discussions between my representation. Perhaps there will be as much guaranteed money associated with my contract as there was with Deshaun Watson's. Perhaps then I would sign up for the 60-year deal. But, at this point, I think we better keep it on a semi-annual basis.
Buck Reising. Brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, home of the non-commissioned salespeople. He joins us every Friday. How much have you enjoyed? Because I know you love college basketball, and I've heard you say this a couple times recently on your show. Like, no matter what happens that day in the sports world, no matter what happens, the NFL hatches another egg every day that's bigger than anything the rest of the sports world can possibly come up with. This is just unbelievable. And then this year may be the craziest offseason we've ever had.
Buck.
Yeah, it's a great point about this whole situation with the NFL and how suffocating it's been, honestly. And I hate it for college basketball because, this is the whole one shining moment thing. Like, they're going to wait till the national championship game or the March Madness finale, whatever the proper term is, and then they're going to drop Tom Brady wants to be traded from the Bucks to the Dolphins, like I saw floating around today, which is just, come on, enough with this already. It was already, Tom Brady retiring before the Super Bowl was, that's one off-season worth of news. That's the whole thing, much less for him to unretire 40 days later, and then with everything that's been swirling around. And I understand that there's many layers to this. There's the $25 million that teams are getting back on the salary cap. There's the fact that the Rams have just said, literally in their general manager's word, well, not literally because I can't say the word literally, that he said at their Super Bowl parade where he said, bleep the draft picks. And, it turns out it works for him. So that seems to be the way that everybody else, at least in the AFC, is operating at this point. But yeah, I wish that they would just give college basketball just a little more air, because that Duke Texas Tech game was so much fun, and so was Arizona and Houston, and nobody's going to talk about it today because Deshaun Watson, whether the charges, well, there's no charges, the allegations against Deshaun Watson are going to smother up everything that has anything to do with college basketball this evening, because there's still a whole slate of games to be played, and nobody's going to talk about them.
Buck Reising, our guest, Buck Reising Show from the Install Podcast, A to Z Sports. You can find him lots of places. You can find him here on Fridays with us.
No doubt, and all over the station. Buck, I guess, what did you think about the Cleveland presser with your man Watson?
No, I don't blame respectfully, we did that.
I didn't mean it in that way, but what were your thoughts, the questions, how the Browns handled it, even Watson and some of his answers?
They've had a long time. He hasn't spoken publicly in over a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was almost jarring to hear him and see him speak because of how long it has been since we've been, no pun intended, exposed to Deshaun Watson. And looking at how they handled this, one, I thought, first and foremost, I thought it was a joke that Dee and Jimmy Haslam were not out there with him. They're doing it. I know they're doing a press conference currently with Cleveland media, but it's not being nationally televised on SportsCenter. It's not being, carried on radio stations around the country as we did today. It's not nearly the kind of scrutiny. It's just a couple of, offhanded tweets from people who still have the attention span to pay attention to the owners who are going to slide this thing under the rug without any moral consequence, or apparently, in their estimation, there will be no financial cost to them. In fact, they probably expect that this will do well as soon as games start to be played, as soon as he beats the Ravens for the first time or something to that effect. I thought his answers were difficult. There was only so much he was obviously willing to say because, as we well know, he's not innocent. He's not guilty, but he's not innocent of anything just yet until these civil suits get settled in some form or fashion. And, the explanation about why have 22 different massage therapists I don't know if you guys read or saw that particular answer, but he just starts talking about this social media age that we live in as if that's any kind of, explanation for just why so many women that you were approaching for these kind of services. And then, to end it with, I don't regret anything. And if he believes himself, and again, we don't know all of the details on this. Only the thing that we know is that 2 grand juries have not found it within their scope to bring criminal charges against him, which is a win for him in some degree. But to say that there are no regrets about anything, to then pose for the picture with the Browns jersey and the smiling GM and coach next to him after all, the 30 minutes worth of sexual misconduct and sexual assault questions that they sat there asking, I thought the whole thing was, about as laughable as I expected it to be, outside of just physically seeing him and hearing him speak after having been so long.
Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting because you're looking at it at this point in time. We don't know any of the facts of if he's going to, be, I guess, paying these ladies money or not. But how would you have had him answer those questions? Once you decide to go out in front of the media, what would you have prepped him to do if you were, coming from his camp as a lawyer?
It's a good question, right? Because this scene, because I would have been unsatisfied had he taken the advice that I'm about to give him retroactively. I would have not liked the fact that, in my estimation, it would have been cleaner if they'd have come out there with all 3 of them. And I mean, Andrew Berry did most of the heavy lifting on this, but all 3 of them needed to have prepared statements and then just to refer back to the statements the entire time. It's cold, it's crass, it's basically pleading the fifth. But if he's comfortable doing that in the courtroom, why not do it there? I don't think he gained anything at all. And listen, he's going to get hammered today for the layup stuff. Like he said, he wanted to approach this next opportunity just as hands-on as he was in Houston, which of course is a misstep, and he did not mean that with the implications of what he said. But this was not going to go well either way, Blaine. But to say less would have been the more smooth, for lack of a better term, way of operating, rather than having him out there saying, yes, I regret nothing. Yes, I'm, completely innocent of these things, and I can't wait to get further into the discovery of this so that you guys can see this, when if that was so simple, it would not be taking a year and a half nearly at this point. I just think the better mode of going about this would have been to, I addressed it that in my opening statement, would refer back to it to answer any of your questions. Happy to talk about football if you want, which would make me equally angry, but not nearly as badly as I think this thing went.
Well, you know his voice. This is Buck Reising. And Buck, I guess let's go to something a little lighter, on a lighter note.
Please.
Let's just talk about A.J. Brown's tweet that he deleted. Talking about he's the best leader in Marcus Mariota. I mean, so wait a minute. Back up the bridge truck and tell me, yeah, you want that money, bro? Delete that tweet. We got Ryan Tannehill here, man. So what'd you think about what happened?
He is the master deleter, is he not? Nobody deletes a tweet faster than A.J. Brown. The man works with great efficiency in that regard. Listen, I was texting Derek Mason. I said some words that probably aren't FCC safe, but I said, I hate you for this today because it's the last thing that I want to talk about. And the other option was to talk about the alleged sexual predator that the Cleveland Browns just brought into their organization. I'm picking from bad options. Why are you going to make me waste my time with this silliness? Because what Derek had alleged was that there must be an indictment of Ryan Tannehill that A.J. Brown would express, that would say kind words about a guy whose career did not end well here. In fact, Marcus Mariota was a failure as a Tennessee Titan. I'm very happy that he's going to have another opportunity, and I hope that he makes a better go of it than I think it might go, because they have 0 offensive linemen and 0 wide receivers for him. But listen, AJ's AJ has the same problem that I do on social media, except he's just got a lot more eyeballs on him. He just puts things out onto the internet, and then after the fact, it's like, it's probably not the best idea. Let's just go ahead and delete it. When it's never going to be deleted, not when you have that kind of scrutiny on you. And listen, I mean, Lucas and I were talking about this during a commercial break today, just about how the organization might feel about how active he is on social media. And, obviously they don't want him IG live streaming after he's just had surgery on both of his knees and telling, people how hard it was to gut it out. Like, that's the stuff you're wanting to avoid. This stuff is largely harmless. It's just it's March 25th, and this is what we have to talk about regarding A.J. Brown, and none of it matters because he's still going to get a $25 million a year payday at some point from somebody.
We're on with Buck Reising from the Buck Reising Show right here on 104.5 The Zone.
All right, let's talk about.
I might interrupt your transition because I know it was going to be smooth as silk, Mickey. But the Titans have just hired Chase Blackburn as an assistant special teams coach. The team has announced that Chase Blackburn, I believe, he did win a couple of Super Bowls with the New York Giants. So he's coming in as a special teams coach to replace some of the assistants that they parted ways with in the middle of the season. Sorry, Vic, go ahead.
Well, thanks for breaking news.
Yeah,
on our
that's
show,
good.
Man.
We didn't have time to do the breaking news
I know.
signal.
I couldn't get my and I enjoy that, man. That's the only time we get breaking news.
Well, that goes back to
your impression of the breaking news sound is preferable to the one that Lucas just drowned.
Well, that just that should solve a lot of problems, Buck, because we all remember the day after the season ended, and there were so many people who were hot about how the offense had underperformed and finished with a 16 performance, the second year in a row in the playoffs, and they immediately fired the assistant to the traveling secretary and the and the assistant special teams coach, and that seemed to fix everything, I'm sure. So good to know that that's in order now.
All right. So are you reporting this or someone else?
Well, no, the team just released that.
Okay, Tights. Okay.
They traded for Robert Woods. And they got him for, a sixth-rounder, another J-Rob special. I know you and Greg Cosell have talked about him. What's the impressions for how this fellow will fit into what they do? I know Vrabel has praised his pass blocking when he was still on the Rams.
Run blocking.
Yeah. Yes.
He is – listen, if for people who haven't watched Robert Woods, religiously with the Rams, which I don't expect there's many people in our audience that have, I understand why, because, the offseason gets up and gets spinning, and then all of a sudden Russell Wilson's getting traded from Seattle. So somebody who's got a blue check mark, I can't remember who, put it out there that, they must be shopping DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett too. So then Titans fans get all hot and bothered about the idea that, they could trade for DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. And then when you get Robert Woods, it almost felt like people were underwhelmed when in reality, I mean, this dude is, and I said it this week on the show, this dude is exactly what you wanted Corey Davis to be, and that Corey really never materialized it. And he's still young. He still has time in his career to do so. But, Robert Woods, while he's not this overwhelmingly freakish, athletic, fast, Blaine, I heard you talking about Tyreek Hill this week. What if there's even a precedent for a player like that exists in the history of the league, he's not one of those guys, but he's still a really, really damn good receiver that can do so much for you in a variety of different roles. They found ways creatively in Los Angeles to get the ball in his hands, whether that be on toss sweeps, even though he's not necessarily a burner, whether that's just how well he is able to create separation, even though he's not one of these freakishly fast guys. He understands the techniques and the route craft and all of the different nuances that go into playing that position. At 29, will be 30 by the time the NFL season starts. And listen, ACL tears are going to be triggering for Titans fans. I understand that. But I just think this is such a good value to go out and trade for a wide receiver contract that is somewhere in the area of what you can afford, but also not 4 years, 72 like Christian Kirk got, or 28.5 mil like Devontae Adams got. You found value on the market in a really, really good player that just got jettisoned for no other reason than they were up against the cap. They brought in Allen Robinson, and somebody had to go. And fortunately for the Titans, that person was Robert Woods. I love the fit here.
Fortunately for us, we got Buck Reising joining us as he does every Friday right here on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, Buck, Mickey took us down this rabbit hole the other day, and I said, I want to ask Buck this question, and that is, what ideas do you have for the overtime rule? Because he was talking about how the USFL is going to have all these crazy overtime rules.
Yep.
You got any suggestions? I know you're a very insightful guy about how the NFL should do their overtime.
Well, listen, Blaine, if I was running the league, this thing would go straight around. But, why not? Let me tell Raj how to do his job.
Sure.
I'm not I don't get bothered by the idea that there may not be like playoff overtime, right? Like if I could do away with one thing about the NFL's overtime rules, just generally, regular season ties. I mean, shoot them into the sun. I understand that that's more physically taxing on players, but just the idea of a tie in professional football is.
I'm not with that either, though. Yeah.
It makes my head hurt. And like I said, you can't let these things go on forever. You want to make sure that you're taking care of the players as best you can, but also like if that was a primary concern, you wouldn't be playing an additional 17th regular season game and an expanded postseason now. Like, so get the hell out of here with that. As far as the playoff rules are concerned, like did I want to see Josh Allen get a crack at Pat Mahomes in that divisional round? Of course. It was a spectacular game. It's electric the entire time. They're two of probably the most talented quarterbacks that we have in the sport in the modern day NFL. But like also, I don't really get bent out of shape about it. What I want is just the result. I just want the result, no matter how we go about it. I think that the NFL's playoff overtime rules are largely okay, and I think that the thing that Mike Vrabel is proposing, where not only would you have to score a touchdown, but you would have to go for the 2-point conversion to end it, as opposed to just kicking the extra point. Like, I don't know why Mike insists on living his life with maximum stress, but that's all that it means to me. And, like, I get it. Mike Vrabel likes to work a little bit of that intimidation, playing chicken on the sideline with the opposing coach. They did it in Buffalo with Sean McDermott, where Josh Allen's getting ready for the 4th and short sneak. Mike Vrabel's not taking a timeout. Mickey, I don't know if you were in the press box with me for that game, but we're all screaming, take the timeout, Mike. What the hell are you doing? They're going to do it, and this is one of the most efficient plays in all of football, where you've got this gigantic, avatar of a quarterback who's going to be able to get the 1 inch that he needs to advance it. And instead, Mike let them sweat it out the way that Belichick did Pete Carroll in that Super Bowl, where you're just letting them get into their own head. So I understand why Mike believes in that kind of tactical advantage. It has proven to be effective multiple times with multiple teams. But also, come on. What are you doing here, bud? Like, just play for the win. You don't need to send everybody through the roof. Because Titans fans were like, oh yeah, I like that proposal. Gotta like that way to end the game. Until it happens to you, until you score the touchdown, you miss the 2-point conversion, and somebody else, Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, or any of these other, Russell Wilson now in your conference, until one of these quarterbacks does it to you, and then you're sitting there, I can't use the words that I want to use, but you're just bleak. You're just bleak after that.
Well, since you're a little confused, I think both of these guys are really confused, and that is Baker Mayfield and Jimmy G. Which one of these guys survive and which one of them gets traded or even cut? Any bold predictions? I want you to call your shot right here.
Okay, well, I think that Jimmy stays. I think that Jimmy stays in San Francisco. You could do a lot worse as far as a backup quarterback situation or even a bridge. If Jimmy has to play some football, that you at least have institutional knowledge that you can rely on him to an extent, even though we all understand what Garoppolo's limitations are at this point. Baker, man, I don't know what you do. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of interest. The one place that has a legitimate starting quarterback opening in Seattle doesn't seem to want him. And I mean, if you're trading 3 first-round picks for Deshaun, and Russell Wilson is going for a package of picks and players as well, and Tyreek Hill is going for 5 total draft picks, like, everybody's going to be the Browns are going to be looking around and being like, okay, well, if X quarterback is worth this, what about a super cost-effective quarterback former first overall pick who's still on his rookie deal? What can we get for that? And the answer is zilch, because nobody seems to want him. And it stinks for Baker, even though I've never been overwhelmingly impressed by him as a professional quarterback. I think he did the right thing. He did the right thing for the fans and for his team, which is to play through the injuries. And I don't think there's a single player who cost themselves more financially this offseason by doing exactly that, exactly what they ask you to do, what they want you to do. Blaine, you know this better than I do.
Yeah.
Doing exactly what the team and the fans and the coaching staff, whether it's outright pressure or just kind of subliminal pressure. Hey, if you're ready to go, we're ready to go with you. And he tried, and it's going to blow up in his face in ways that I don't think he could have possibly imagined this offseason. It's a nightmare for him.
But good stuff, man. We got you all fired up, and now we send you into your weekend. We hope you have a great one, and we will talk to you next week in the Friday show. Thank you, sir. Enjoy basketball tonight.
I will, and then the NFL will do something, and it'll immediately sap my joy from basketball away. But it's always a pleasure, boys. Have a great weekend.
100%. When we come back, it's time to call our shot, courtesy of our friends at Chattanooga Whiskey. That's next on Blaine and Mickey. Hit us up on Twitter at Blaine and Mickey or call 615-737-1045.
Shush.
We do this every Friday on Blaine and Mickey. Call your shot, brought to you by Chattanooga Whiskey 91, an award-winning small batch bourbon available at your local retail store. This is the time we do call your shot. Either one of you guys ready to call your shot that Tom Brady will play for the Jets or for the Dolphins rather?
That would be a curveball.
That would be for the Dolphins. Story breaking that the Dolphins were trying to work out a trade for Tom Brady, and it was the same guy in New England that had reported that Tom Brady would leave and go to the Buccaneers. And he said his report was that the Dolphins were going. This broke last night, Lucas?
I hadn't seen it till today.
Oh, I didn't see it until today.
I haven't seen it at all.
So
did you break it?
Now, okay.
What's
So
his name?
you hadn't seen this. So, Jeff Howe of The Athletic reported that Tom Brady is currently trying to recruit free agents. And this comes on the heels. I guess it was reported Thursday night and the world kind of found out today. Dale Arnold of the New England Sports Network said the Dolphins were working on a deal to bring Tom Brady there. On a show in WEEI in Boston, he shared those was two other hosts, their Maloney and Faria radio show. They shared the news from Arnold on the air that Brady and Miami were working on a deal to bring him to Miami ahead of the 2022 season. When they asked Arnold if they could share the news on air, he stated they could. Arnold said they're working on it, but they may not be able to get it done. Wouldn't that be the cherry on top of this absolutely bananas year that Tom Brady would just I wouldn't put anything.
I would feel like I'm being bamboozled if I'm a Buccaneer player, especially if I'm a new signee or even returning sign guy like Fournette. Like he knows that Tom Brady's the quarterback.
What a roller coaster that would be.
What? That would, oh my gosh.
Like, oh, we're screwed. Oh, Brady's back. Oh, no, we're done again.
Oh, man.
They would be left with no options. They'd have to go trade for Baker.
Oh, man. I don't know about this one because they've given up
all
their picks now to get Tariq. So I don't know if this is viable now. Anything's possible, but man, I don't know.
And people are coming. I rabbit hole down it this morning. People,
you know what? I think this is what Tom Brady wants. Really, seriously, I think he wants to play old Billy Boy twice a year, and that's Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You said I was done. You tried to blackball me and say that my arm was shot, and you knew it wasn't the case. And now I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna make you hurt twice a year. This is how this guy operates. The little slide dog here. Mm-hmm.
That would be the last frontier for Brady because he's already won a Super Bowl without him. Now the only thing would be go and beat him in his own division.
And I used to rave over this that Tom Brady was the mechanism, and I wanted to see him get a divorce because it was him over Bill. That's what I've always said. Oh, me and Mr. Marky Mark used to go at it over. And I said, I'm just telling what the players are telling me. They said, nah, Tom Brady is changing the plays. There he is running the crap, and then Bill gets mad. Mm-hmm. And that's why he got tired of it and said, I'm out. I can't continue to get verbally abused, and I'm the GOAT. Because he would treat him just like any other player.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, in the meetings and everything. Have video of Tom Brady messing up and be like, what are you doing? And just ripping him just like everybody else.
No, it was a different Brady in Tampa for sure. Just personality.
He was free.
Yep.
He was free.
Yep.
And guess what Bruce Arians is? A free-loving type of guy.
He's free spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's up there drinking brew with out there tailgating with the fans after the games now. People got to know the history of this guy.
Would it surprise you at all, though, this year? Would this surprise you?
I want it to happen.
I do now. Yeah.
I do.
Although I just don't want for God's sakes, I don't want anybody else in the AFC. Enough. It's enough people to beat in the AFC.
What if they trade Tariq to the Bay? I mean, to Tampa Bay. He'd be like, what? I thought it was going to Miami.
Wait, what just happened? What just happened? All right, call your shot real quick, guys, on the way out.
Arkansas beats Duke.
Oh, that's where I was going to go. So then I'm going to go with Providence over Kansas.
I am going North Carolina over UCLA.
Oh,
the blue over the blue and gold. Hey, it's time for us to blue and go. We got to get out of here. 3HL coming up next on this cloudy Friday.
Yes, and in the meantime,
Yes, sir. Peace.